Hi, everyone. Welcome to Domain Sherpa. And thank you for tuning in to the podcast with the best domain name and digital asset content in the world. Today's episode is a down the rabbit hole called Unstoppable Today, where Drew and I are joined by Matt Gould, founder and CEO of Unstoppable Domains, to talk about what they've got going on, including updates on their registrar services, their marketplace, their patents, and their roadmap. We also talk about the upcoming ICANN TLD round, as well as the impact that crypto and AI could have on both Web3 and legacy domain names. And also, since it's Thanksgiving, Unstoppable is providing a Cyber Monday buy one, get one free sale. So go to unstoppabledomains.com for more info on that. And for domainers with large portfolios over 100 domains, they're also providing a free transfer in promo opportunity for those that qualify. So check the show notes for more detail or simply email Brady, B-R-A-D-Y, at unstoppabledomains.com for that free transfer in opportunity to see if you qualify, and if so, how you can take advantage of that. And remember, if you're listening to the audio version of this podcast, you can also watch the video version at DomainSherpa.com and on our YouTube channel at ds.tv. You can also listen to the shows on Apple and Spotify and other podcast platforms as well. And please make sure to hit the like button and the subscribe button and all that good stuff everywhere that you can and help Domain Sherpa grow the pie. We also integrate our shows with Muse.ai, which provides search functionality for the shows and transcripts as well. So definitely check all that out. And huge shout out to DNWE, short for Domain Name Wholesale Exchange. It's a trading platform designed specifically for domain investors, streamlining the process of buying and selling domain names to make it quicker and easier. With a community of over 3,500 investors, DNWE enhances market liquidity, facilitating more efficient transactions with standard domain listings, reverse auctions, standard auctions, and soon-to-be added portfolio auctions featuring traffic portfolios. DNWE is part of EW3N, a family-run digital asset investment company based in London, England, that also operates DomainManage.com, which is a global sales platform, and Brandable.uk, which is a marketplace for UK and co.uk domain names. And special shout out to our own business, MediaOptions, the #1 domain brokerage in the world, specializing in domain acquisition, sales, and appraisals. Find out more at MediaOptions.com, where you can also sign up for our newsletter for the best domain names and domain opportunities available in the market every week, and also featuring key insights and other helpful information related to branding, naming, and domain investing. With that, I want to say happy Thanksgiving to everybody. It's now time to get into this episode of Domain Sherpa, where all roads lead to domains. So let's jump down the rabbit hole. What's up, Sherpa Network? Thank you for tuning in today. My name is Jonathan Tenenbaum, aka JT, aka J-On, aka Sherpa Winfrey, and I'm the host and producer of Domain Sherpa, where all roads lead to domains. Today's show is part of our Down the Rabbit Hole series. As we say on Domain Sherpa, all roads lead to domains. In the reverse, our work with domains has us venturing all the time into different areas and topics, some domain related, some that aren't, hence the jump down the rabbit hole. This particular show was started with with our homegirl, Jen Sale, described as the tech-adjacent digital asset pop culture tangent positive podcast with domain stuff thrown in for good measure. We dive into current events or get into a topic or two that we think will be interesting to the guests. In this case, we are going to talk about Unstoppable Domains, your one-stop shop for on-chain domains with the one and only Matt Gould, however you want to say it. I'm going to butcher it. I apologize in advance. A lot more AKAs roll off of Gold than Gould, but maybe we'll even get a couple of them. But let's see what is good. So we've got Drew on here as well, who I guess we'll throw out the disclaimer, is an investor in Unstoppable. We've had Brad Cam on here before, and we definitely have dug into our fair share of Web3 domains on the podcast. But, there's a ton of crazy, interesting stuff happening in the space. So let's dig right into it. Over to my right, I got my boy Andrew Rosner, aka Morpheus, aka the Dirk Diggler of digital assets, aka Bob Lee Swagger the Sniper, aka Drew. Drew got what I need, aka every Rosner has its thorn. Graybeard the domain pirate, aka Lobster Claw. What up, dog?
Sup?
Let's go. What's good with you, man? How you feeling?
Oh man, unfortunately, I'm very tired today. I'm just wiped out, but otherwise, I'm great. I'm just watching my moves swing with the price of Bitcoin. That's it.
Dude, what'd you call it on our call earlier today? Quantum entanglement. You know what I'm saying?
That's it. Quantum entanglement. My emotions are quantumly entangled with the price of Bitcoin.
Oh, that's why it's like as you get older, you get like arthritis, right? Like you're like, oh, I can tell it's gonna rain because my joints hurt. In this case, it's like you're like, ooh, I'm feeling a little off. Bitcoin must be down, and then it's like without even looking at the chart. But yeah, man, quantum entanglement, baby. That's what it is. All right, well, let's keep it moving. So, special guest below us, at least on my screen, we got the one and only Matt Gold, aka Goldfinger, aka Pot of Gold, aka I ain't saying he's a gold digger, but he ain't messing with no broke, aka let's go with the Gould version, aka Ra's out Gould, aka Gould's out for the summer. He is the founder and CEO of Unstoppable Domains, focusing on creating blockchain-based domains to simplify cryptocurrency payments, hosting decentralized websites, and empowering users with digital ownership in the Web3 ecosystem. Yeah, that came right from Chat GPT. And these domains enable, I'm going to keep going with what they actually kicked out. These domains enable users to replace complex cryptocurrency addresses with human readable names and offer features like enhanced data privacy and security. Before founding Unstoppable Domains in 2018, Gould worked as director of operations at Talkable, where he joined in 2012 as a data analyst, holds a bachelor degree in finance from the Scheller College of Business at Georgia Tech that he earned in 2006. Under his leadership, Unstoppable Domains has gained prominence in the decentralized web space, advocating for user-owned digital identities that integrate seamlessly with cryptocurrency wallets and other blockchain tools. How'd they do, man? How'd OpenAI do?
I mean, it's super impressive. The AI tools are amazing. And coming here to chat with you guys feels like full circle, right? Because we started out Web3 on-chain domains, started out with Andrew Rosner and with one of the early people we were talking to, and the whole field was just completely new. And here we are, later, moving over to DNS, doing a lot more stuff in the DNS domain industry. And the AI is literally telling you what I do now. So, man, it's amazing how fast that flies, and this tech is getting crazy.
Yeah, it's getting wild.
Well, and that's why I think it's so timely having you on the show. Like I said, we had Bradley on. I don't know if you had been on the show prior. I know that he was, you haven't been on since I've been host. So, I know that's obviously for me, this is super cool. We've done some business with you. Drew's an investor, like I said. So we've got some history there. And, but really, but watching the evolution of Unstoppable is super, super cool. I mean, you guys are, the space it's extremely fluid. And you guys are right at the forefront of all of this stuff. So I'm super, super excited to jump down the rabbit hole and talk about all of that. So, but let's start a little bit with the history.
It actually, the whole journey tracks my own personal journey as well. I mean, it was, when I saw, first Ethereum name service launch and what was that, 2015 or so? It was the first time that I kind of took pause and thought, ooh, wow, there's disruption to the domain system, the legacy domain system. And I don't want to say I panicked, that would be an exaggeration, but I decided that I needed to get informed. I need to really understand this, which I did. I bought a ton of them, and day one of the release, and that started my Web3 journey. I feel like I was proselytizing, in the domain space to the OG domainers, from let's say 2015 until 2017, 18, probably 18, 19. And, nobody really wanted to listen. And, I got pretty deep down the rabbit hole with, variety of different Web3 domain projects. But I felt pretty strongly that Unstoppable was going to be a leader, and I got into the funding round, and then the subsequent couple of years, you had the whole NFT craze, which got me even deeper down the Web3 rabbit hole, and it was really as a part of that and getting a really deep understanding of what an NFT was, what was driving the enthusiasm, what was driving the liquidity in that market, the spontaneity of the purchasing decisions and the, seemingly irrational momentum of that market, that drove it's always at the extremes that you actually get the greatest perspective. And so I got a pretty deep perspective, and that actually pivoted me away from the Web3 domain thing. And I realized that like they clearly have function, and there's always some value associated with function, but it was not ever going to be a threat to the legacy domain system. And so they had the potential to complement the legacy domain system. They had the ability to be extremely additive or accretive to the domain system, in the sense that it would add utility to the existing DNS capabilities. But I didn't see it any further as like a replacement or a disruption to the legacy domain system. And then, as Matt said, we kind of came full circle, as it was almost like a ubiquitous moment that I feel like a lot of the folks in the Web3 domain space sort of came to understand that it wasn't us versus them, and that this was really sort of a singular path journey, and that the Web3 domain space wasn't going to replace the DNS system or the ICANN system, but it certainly, like I said, could be accretive, and hopefully, God willing, someday, I think that the architecture that companies like Ustopabble have created, should ultimately be the governing architecture for the DNS system. Whether or not we get there, who knows? We got, some big obstacles, but I think that's right. I think that's where we should go. And that's why I continue to be excited about, Ustopabble and the space.
Yeah. And I think you very accurately describe everyone in the industry, in the blockchain Web3 domain name industry's kind of growth. Because, when it first came out, everyone's like, this is amazing new technology. It's going to change everything. It's very, difficult. Then we had the huge 2021 bubble with NFTs, and all of these Web3 domain systems are NFTs. We saw the bubble pop 22 and 23, and everyone Web3 companies and Unstoppable led this charge, said, okay, we need to integrate in with ICANN, right? So we went into ICANN and spoke with those folks, got our registrar license. It took a year for Unstoppable Domains to get their registrar license. I think the typical timeline is 4 months. And I believe that 8 months of that was because ICANN had to wrap their head around what a Web3 domain was. Going forth with them, making sure that there wasn't user confusion, trying to understand how these things would work together. I think also in Web3, people realized that having a name for your wallet address was neat, but not a requirement. Yeah. Whereas having a name for your business, like .com name for your business, you have to have that. And so if you're trying to sell something, you want to have a product that people have to have. And I think it may just be a time period thing. So maybe 20 years from now, you have to have some on-chain name for sending and receiving payments as the market grows. Mm-hmm. But today, that's not the case. And we're integrating in traditional DNS into Ustopabble domains. Where I think we're now supporting 50 plus traditional ICANN TLDs. We'll be over a couple hundred soon. We're just a full-fledged ICANN registrar, and the biggest difference is by default everything on our registrar is on-chain, right? So if you transfer domain names into Ustopabble domain, we handle all the tech on the back end, so you don't even need to know that blockchain and Web3 is happening. And every time we talk to customers, especially domainers, they don't want to know anything about blockchain and Web3, and honestly, they don't need to, but they do want to have faster transfers, lower fees, lower commissions. And so we're focusing on those value benefits. And crypto in 2021, you had to be there to understand how crazy it was. People were just saying decentralized super DAO with a token and then pushing prices to 50 billion. And it was just a mania. And now people are saying value prop is XYZ, come check us out. And how can we kind of, push things forward? So I'm feeling very positive about bringing domain names on chain. And as we are learning, and there's a steep learning curve coming into ICANN and learning all the intricacies of all the different TLDs and all the country codes and how all this works. I mean, there's some things that happen when you're a domainer. It's like you transfer a domain name from one place to one registrar to another, and it takes weeks. And you're like, why is this happening? You have domains up for sale, maybe on certain websites, you find out, oh wait, it wasn't really for sale, or the buyer the buyer backs out, or the seller backs out. All sorts of things like this, that if we can put them on chain and put some guarantees into the software code so that it's more programmatic, more automated, and it's on chain, but you don't even need to care about that, so that you can just get paid faster, list quicker, get your transfers in better. I think that's where we're going to see the advantages here, and we're still doing Web3.
Yeah, I want to dig into some of the like why. Right. I want to dig in a little bit into the why does having it on chain make it faster? Why does it make it more secure? Why does it make it cheaper? But before we do that, I want to just out of personal intrigue, what does that interfacing with ICANN look like? What do those conversations look like? How does that go when you're like you sit down with somebody from ICANN and it's like, all right, so look, we want to be a Web3 domain registrar. And they're like, yeah, blah, 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 whatever. What does that mean? Right. And so how do you, I had a very limited amount of interaction because we bought a TLD when Frank Schilling sold off all his TLDs with Uniregistry and Registrar. We bought one, we never really actually did anything with it. But we did own it for like, I don't know, a couple of years or something. And, we were experimenting with some ideas, and when we bought it, Frank had put some of these things on chain, sort of, and so there was the dot Juegos on chain TLD, and that came with the TLD that we bought, and then ICANN basically froze all the transactions and was like, nope, we're not letting any of these things sell because, they have this on-chain component, which we think causes, consumer confusion. And it was like, oh my God, it was just so painful. I basically just threw up my hands and was like, look, this is not our core business. I can't deal with this. This is just, I don't have a lot of tolerance for stupidity. So
did not feel quantumly entangled into it.
I was not quantumly entangled. So what does that look like? What were the,
Yeah. I gotta give credit to some of the people on my team and also at ICANN, because I'm kind of like you. When I run into a regulation that doesn't make sense, I immediately go, "This is stupid. I want to smash it with a hammer." Right?
Yeah.
Like that's my gut reaction. And I want to give a shout out to specifically Bill on my team, who and Brad as well.
Bill the Hammer? Can we call him Bill the Hammer?
No. Bill's actually really nice. I'm the hammer, but he was the one who's like, you don't hammer here. You just need to talk to people, right? And really, it was showing up. So we showed up to a bunch of things. We now have people on our team who are part of some of the ICANN, voting and
groups.
Yeah, the working group, sure. Yeah,
exactly right. So it was showing up. It was explaining ourselves. Brad showed up at one of the meetings, explaining what we wanted to do. Meeting with their technical team. I met with their CTO a couple times. Brad has a few times. A great guy, and their team over there, and just saying, hey, here's how we're trying to build the technology itself. Had to get sign off from the tech side of, well, not sign off, but just had to get it reviewed on the tech side that's saying this is not going to cause problems in the DNS system. So just on a technical front, it's like, will this cause DNS problems?
Yeah.
Right? You had to get through those hoops. It took about 6-7 months in our application process to get to that point. And then it was just political. And I actually give them credit because they decided first half of this year to turn the page, right? And ICANN said, okay, we're just going to say, you know what? Consumers are smart. They're going to be able to know the difference between a crypto domain and an ICANN domain as long as they're educated about it. And they want to spend their money on crypto domains. That's totally up to them as long as it's clear. And that was the majority of their concerns. And now we're rolling. And Unstoppable Domains is, there's a couple other companies who've also gone through and gotten the registrar license, but I think we're the ones who are most actively progressing on this. And then we're also applying for even more ICANN licensure. So we're getting our registry service provider license like that's due in May of this year. So that we'll be able to run full stack ICANN. Like we'll be able to run the back end and the front end. I feel like Apple does. You want to own the full stack or else you don't know what's going on. And that's the approach that we're taking. So we're trying to learn. And then, the other people in the Web3 domain space, they ask us, hey, how are you handling this? And we're trying to educate them on what we think is going to work. So there's still a lot of questions about what's going to happen. for the next ICANN auction that's coming up in 2027. And I think that's going to be good for the industry, because post that auction, all of a sudden you're going to have clarity, right? Everyone's going to know, like, these TLDs converted, these TLDs did not. Here's how these things are going to be connected. You'll probably see some movement here for some people in Web3 domain names who are going to try to position themselves differently after that. And I think that, so when I'm talking internally, my team's like, when do you think we'll see, a lot of growth? I think that auction's a big one. Obviously, the crypto market going up right now is good for us. And it's regulatory clarity on just the namespace in general. And I think we'll get that post auction, because once you have the next ICANN auction, Andrew, that the next one after that's going to be 20 years, right? So when the next ICANN auction is 20 years away, then you can have an ecosystem of Web3 domains.
Oh, maybe not. I think that this is sort of a barbell. Like, it's going to go one way or another. So it's either going to be yes in like 20 years or maybe never, or it's going to be like, oh, the market, because just today an article came out. I don't even, some stupid brand, Luby or Lube blah, some bullshit. Yeah. And they abandoned their, they had gotten a .brand. They actually utilized it. They're one of the few that got it and actually utilized it, and they just abandoned it. So, what is that, 12 years, 10 years later, and they've just abandoned it, walked away. And that is the norm from what I've seen. All the .brand applications, very few of them have actually utilized it at all. And the ones that did have mostly backed away. In fact, I'm not sure if there's anybody that's, basically put it out there front and center as like, this is our, I think PwC had done it for a minute, or one of the big accounting firms had done it for a second. I don't know if they still do or not, but there really wasn't a lot of adoption on the .brand side in the last round. And the adoption that did take place basically got walked back for the most part, from what I've seen. And then on the generic side, there's been winners and losers. But obviously, through the success of things, Donuts, Identity Digital now, and some others, .club and .xyz, and there has been some tremendous successes, both from the registry perspective as well as domain investment and end user adoption perspective. And so I am very interested to see. I think this is going to be an enormous round. I think there's going to be an enormous amount of uptake.
How many TLDs?
We don't.
How many TLDs?
That's a great question. I'm thinking 3,000 to 4,000. I think 3x the last round is probably where we're gonna land.
I was thinking.
So I've got like, whenever I come up with an idea of like a new gTLD, I have a folder that I just scribble down, and I think, okay, that would be one I'd apply for. And actually, let me pull up the folder. Let's see how many I got in there.
Well, you look at that, Matt. What's your thought?
Yeah, I was thinking 1,500. But I actually wouldn't be surprised to be on the upside of that. Maybe 2,000, but 3,000 would be incredible. And
we had 1,300 in the last round, right? 1,250, I think.
Right. Yeah, that's right. But you have to understand that the last round, there were a lot of .brands that I don't think are going to come back again. And then also,
but you're going to see a lot of .brands. You're going to see a lot of people that missed their shot. They're going to come back. They're going to do it. Even just because there's so many people that were consultants that made so much money pushing the .brands, and now they're going to come out stronger. There's going to be more of them. I think you're going to see a lot of these agencies want to get in the game. Look, it's the same thing. It's like, how did Kamala Harris spend $1.5 billion in a very short amount of time running that campaign? Well, because the agencies and the people that run the various components of the campaign, they don't get paid unless they spend the money. And so, of course, they spent the money. So I think you're going to see a lot of agencies and campaigns say, let's go push, this tiny little mom and pop. They should have their whatever for their freaking pizza shop, right? I think you're going to see that. That might be an exaggeration, but I think you're going to see a lot of brands, successful or not. I think you're going to see a lot of brands. I think that you're also going to see just an enormous wave of generic TLDs. And I think that because since the last round, we've had the Web3 space explode, and we had this Cambrian explosion of like, even though none of it actually worked, like let's say Handshake, right? So Handshake was the one that was really like wide open. So anybody who had an idea could come and start a new domain extension. Didn't mean anybody else was going to register a domain on it. And most of them weren't even available to register second level domains on. But still, you had a lot of people coming up with a lot of ideas of what they thought would make a good domain extension. Now, it costs virtually nothing to register one of those, and it'll cost, what are they saying, 200 grand?
250, maybe 300.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a high ticket. It's not like it's, oh, let me just take a flyer on this
and that doesn't count the ones that are contested, right? I mean, it's going to be 250 if you're the only applicant.
Yeah, that's table stakes. Yeah, it's table stakes.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but what we're looking at, the ones that are contested, those are going to be there, right? We could probably rattle off, 100 that'll be contested, right? But there's a long tail of ones that will not be contested or will be lightly contested that, I do think that there will be,
well, and what about the fact that we're not going to have
well-heeled investors that want to, have a piece,
right? But we're not going to have private auctions, right? So you won't have the ability for somebody like Donuts last time. I almost said last year, but last time.
But does that drive that? All that does is drive higher prices per string. It doesn't drive more strings being applied.
Right. But what it did, for example, like Donuts really understood the game, right? They probably better than anybody. So their plan last time was to use some of the private auctions to effectively fund the other ones, right? So they said, hey, we're going to apply for
but to fund other contested auctions.
Yeah. Well, and just in general, even some of the uncontested ones, right? So they were able to effectively,
I mean those, but that money was they already had that money to begin with. They had to put that fee up front before any contesting could happen.
Yeah, but some of that, if it's financed,
so my point is simply that doesn't adjust the number of applications. Now the price, the table stakes is higher this time. If it's 250, I think it was 175 or 180 last time.
185.
So it's not cheap, but I do think so I've got 122 new gTLD ideas in my folder.
So that means you only need to have like 25 million to bid.
Yeah. So it's small.
Well, and I do think that what we saw, right? Yeah. What we did see was that, and this is to Andrew's point, the generic extensions had a lot of, sort of, I don't want to say surprise success, but you realize that, wow, if you have a generic string that can pick up, and especially in this crypto environment, right, that can gain traction and popularity and adoption. Well, now, I mean, you look at what XYZ has done. XYZ hasn't relied solely on crypto, but the fact that it's generic in nature has been helpful. Whereas, dot consulting and dot whatever, and, even the dot attorneys, there's 4 or 5 different versions of attorney or lawyer or lawyers, attorneys, that are all sort of competing with each other, and none of them have seemed to, taken over, right? So, but you can get generic strings with, 3 characters, right? And, so just meaning, and in fact, some of the stuff that would have been something like, what's Paige's clothing design, and what is it? It's like CD. What's his string?
I don't know.
But my point is they turn like 3 characters into clothing, art, and design, or whatever it was, and then that's become their string, trying to push it into a particular industry. And I'm sorry, Paige, I'll correct it in the show notes. But but I think that's an interesting angle, and I think that does create a thing where it's like, oh wait, are all 3 how many combinations of just 3 random characters are going to be applied for as a string here? Potentially,
not that many.
But Matt, what do you think about all that? I mean, as somebody who's very interested in this.
Yeah, I mean, I have my spreadsheet like Andrew, right? And I have that thing on lock, right? And we're looking all the time at where we think the ROI is going to be in the next round. But in particular for Web3, there's going to be a lot of competitive things. You have to be ready for that. But I also will reiterate that I think after the auction is through, that will also help Web3 because there'll be a little bit more clarity around the one group ICANN. So I think I think that it has a different kind of impact on web domains than it does on the traditional deals. I think it's going to be a lot of investment, which is also really good. You're going to see, $1 billion+ come into the domain space for this investment period. And then I also think you'll see a lot of disappointed investors.
Totally. As always.
We learned that last
here's
round.
The hot shit. Which string do you think will be the single most contested?
It's going to be something in AI or crypto, depending on what market is doing what. What do you think is going to be the most contested string?
I think it'll be .Bitcoin or .BTC. I think that's going to be the most. I think that'll be the most
interesting.
Contested.
Even more so than like an AI flavored one, because AI.ai.
Yeah, but what do you do with AI? What do you do with AI? I mean, you already have .ai. What are you gonna, say? GAI, general AI, or LLM. Like I don't know. I don't see the opportunity there just because .ai is already strong. As much as I see, I can see a .human or a . Well, Amazon's got .bot already. I think .Bitcoin or .BTC is going to be extremely contested, just because you've got some serious money. There's a lot of pockets with a lot of money, and that's I think that's very valuable real estate. I think it's the most valuable real estate because it for so many reasons, right? It's like,
okay. Yeah, I mean, it's just, I guess it'll be interesting then.
Yeah, I think I agree about.
Well, I was saying, like, what's the application on a .Bitcoin web address?
Just
a wallet?
Just the wallet addresses alone, right? They're like a functional DNS domain name that also represents your wallet address. That alone is pretty high functionality on a blockchain that is only going up and to the right in terms of adoption. So
we'll get.
I think that's pretty valuable.
Drew.Bitcoin, Andrew.Bitcoin. You know what I'm saying? And by the way, for Page, it's CFD, clothing, fashion, design. But as an example of like a 3-character extension, used for a particular sort of space and industry. But if but I think even more so if you get into these, sort of Web3, crypto, coin, community type, sort of, or something even broader, I think gets very, very interesting. And the generic nature of some of the extensions, I think, are really where some value will be found.
Well, so I'll also say, I'm sorry, a little bit of lag here. I know we're struggling, but I would also say the crypto market is just great for domaining, because if crypto goes up, a lot of crypto people like to speculate and they like buying domains. Like that is true. And when we get to 2027, I'm a Bitcoin bull, right? Like I think Bitcoin's going to 1 million, right? So if we're looking at the crypto market right now, it's in a really good spot. And if we get into 2027 and Bitcoin's at 1 million, then I was going to say, I agree with Andrew that, .BTC and .Bitcoin are going to be hot properties, just because you're going to have all these Bitcoin people with 100 Bitcoin they bought for, a sandwich back in 2011, right? And they're going to be able to come to auction and associated with DeFi services, even not on the new TLDs, but just generally across the board. And, you're seeing, so here's a couple of interesting things. We're seeing a lot of crypto companies register .fun out of Radix, right? So we're seeing that, pump.fun. I don't know, Andrew, if you're familiar with that. It's
unfortunately I am.
It's a way to create. Yeah. So .fun is emerging as an interesting consumer play, but crypto specific, just like XYZ. A lot of it. So I will say that I think crypto is going to be a tailwind, especially with Trump in office, for the next 3 years for domaining. And I think this cycle is different than 2021, because it's less bubble.
Uh-oh.
Like the money coming
Don't
in
say
now
it.
is
He said it's
ETF
different. It's different
flows.
this time.
No, never
Said
say
it's different this
Don't
time.
ever say it. It'll never be different. It's
It's
never
different this time.
It's
No,
more,
no. Well.
it's more,
History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes, right? And I think that's kind of the thing. Is like, what? They're also never exactly the same. And I think it's some of the, And then, so go ahead, Matt. Continue with what you were saying as far as,
we're gonna have a bubble, right? People are gonna get overexcited. It is going to pop. I just think people are underestimating the amount of scheduled flows, like pensions, ETF, like these people. I think this on Prime days, I think it could be bigger, right? And the dollar amount's going to be, that's 3 trillion additional market cap. You know what I mean? When Bitcoin 2x back in 2017, you're adding like
it
500
only took like 250.
If we 2x now,
million. Yeah.
So if you just think about that, that's a lot more just raw dollars. Even if so this time, if it goes up 50% from here, that's still more dollars, right? Than when it went up 50% back in 2016. So I think a tremendous amount of impact. So that's where I think the crypto market hits things. And it's mostly on the money side. And then the other thing that I think is long-term, people ask, like, what's the long-term vision for domainings and crypto at Unstoppable Domains? I think it's DeFi and domains, and you'll see people talking about that, calling it domain-fi, right, or something like this. But the domain market has less liquidity, less lending than a lot of other traditional asset markets, right? If I want to go get a loan on my house,
virtually zero.
If I want to get a loan on my a loan on my domain is much more difficult. I think that's the long term. When I'm talking to my team 5+ years, if we get ICANN domains on chain, we're going to build a really fundamentally sound lending market for domain names, which will increase liquidity in the space. It should help prices, support prices. But I think importantly, and Andrew probably
it also allows
me
the
on this,
introduction of insurance, which is super critical to the future development of the asset class, in my opinion.
Why do you think that? I actually think it's going to do something a little bit different, but why insurance in particular?
So, because it's very difficult for standard financial institutions to take custody, which is what is required ultimately if they're going to treat something as collateral. And in order to turn domain names into collateral, actual, pristine collateral, you need some kind of insurance product. And so, particularly if it's a domain name that's in use by a business that wants to use its domain name as collateral, there needs to be
automated repo.
Yeah.
I agree that putting things on chain is going to make enforcing that type of repossession like a lot easier for lending. I think the unseen thing that I think is going to happen, and this is very speculative, so I agree with you on insurance. That's definitely going to happen. I think that's just right. That's definitely going to happen. The one that maybe people aren't thinking about is if there's more availability to finance domains, I think we'll see more development further out the risk curve, right? So right now, if you buy domains, buy .coms, buy good.coms, and then maybe there's like 5 or 10 other TLDs worth where people put a lot of money. But I think that with financing, you're going to have people take more risk to develop new TLDs that maybe they wouldn't have done previously.
I think that's right.
MediaOptions is the industry's leading domain broker specializing in domain acquisitions, high-value domain sales, and domain name consultation. As pioneers and thought leaders on the subject of the domain aftermarket and domain name value, plus through their clear domain acquisition service, MediaOptions offers startups and established corporations an unparalleled scope of high-value domain options, providing access to domain names and curation technologies not available elsewhere. MediaOptions believes in the power of a great domain name and is dedicated to helping you obtain yours. Call or email today to put a domain to work for you.
So one of the things I think from this is even going back to the interview that we did with Brad, and which I would also tell folks, it was an interesting one, which, in watching the evolution of the Unstoppable business, kind of talking about then how are you guys positioned to take advantage of some of these things. One of the things that I was always impressed on the Web3 piece with Unstoppable was your willingness to work with ICANN. I think that's an enormous step, an enormous advantage for you guys. And then also understanding that, look, the plumbing of domains can be clunky at times. When you talk about DNS, especially talk about domain transfer, all that kind of stuff. Drew has often talked about, his ideal marketplace involves similar to, what you guys are doing, which is, this tokenization of the domains, within the ecosystem to allow for instantaneous transfer, selling, settlement, things like that. And I mean, you guys have already, so I guess I'm just segueing a little bit away from some of the speculation about what the crypto market with the new ICANN round are going to do, and more about what you guys are currently doing. Because again, I've always looked at the most interesting thing with regards to Web3 and domains being improving the plumbing, right? And being able to do that in ways that then make the actual utility of domains, and then sort of the introduction or the refining or the improvement of the marketplaces and just all of the different things that we use domains for to make it better, right? So, and you guys are tackling some of that right now, right? I mean, and you guys have your live your marketplace, which isn't just crypto domains, right? It's you've got plenty. I mean, you have .xyz, you've got all these extensions. I mean, can you talk a little bit about that? Because again, I'm just kind of segueing a little bit from the forward-facing stuff and just some of that speculative piece, and more about what are you all doing like right now, because I find that stuff super interesting.
No, appreciate it. Yeah, we got to get a little grounded here. We're going a little bit too far into space. If you don't mind, let me just jump on. I'll show you guys what we got. Let me see if I pull it up. Yeah, so this is our registrar today. You can go on here. We're supporting 50 plus TLDs, and we're going to have a couple hundred next year. You can see Andrew's bug on the front page if you want to. And, we're trying to, we're focusing strongly on DNS domains. We're pointing out we've got our ICANN registrar license now. The differences in trading functionality. Most of the improvements are, like lower commissions. You can do self brokerage much more easily in some cases. Depends on your situation. We've
explain what that means.
So you have a sale right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
a sale you've negotiated with somebody separately by email. You have you've agreed on a transaction and you need to settle it.
Yeah, exactly. And the issue is, you don't want to just transfer them your domain until they've transferred the money, and they may not want to transfer you the money until you've transferred them a domain. But we have everything on chain. Like if your domain name is on a system, it's on chain by default, and we have software, smart contracts, right? And you can put your domain name into that smart contract, and then they make their payment with credit card or PayPal or crypto or whatever, and that goes into the smart contract. And when both those things are in the smart contract, it executes, and the domain name goes to that guy, and you get the money, right? And that smart contract is a lot cheaper than escrow services or brokerage service, and so that's self brokerage, right? And then and so that's just small little differentiation. The transfers are also as soon as the blockchain transaction goes through, so a couple minutes. Actually, it's like 20 seconds if everything's going fine on the blockchain. If you do have commissions, we have really low commission fees because it's all software for us. So it's 3% commissions if it just sell. We have landers just like everybody else. Mm-hmm. That one will load eventually. And we also have, we're trying to build all the traditional DNS functionality, bulk manage, make offer landers, adding in, we got CETO, I don't know the correct domain or way to pronounce that. We're adding it, working on after next. And those are the small pieces of the puzzle. That's like table stakes. And, your domains will show up in our search results, and we're going to be continuing to improve this market. That's the state of that's the state of the art today. And I think the big thing is, if your domain's on Unstoppable Domains, it's on chain. And we're going to continue to add more functionality to that. For instance, lease to own on chain is very interesting because the person misses a payment, you just get it back, right? And that's built in, so you don't have to do a bunch of arguing about back and forth. We can also create lease to own leases where the person can't raise the rent on you, right? So you could have a rent with an option to buy, and it can enforce that the rent stays the same, which is good for buyers because they know that the landlord's not going to raise the rent on them, right? There's all sorts of things that we can enforce on chain that are basically smart contracts that just make the cost of doing business lower. And right now, when you trade a domain name, you're paying in some cases 15 or 25%. And we think that the cost for doing trades on chain is going to be closer to 3%, which is where we're at right now with the marketplace. Even a fully functional thing with all these different services. So if we can bring the cost of doing transactions down, then there's more money in the market for trading domains, and hopefully, again, bringing more liquidity to our long-term vision of having people be able to finance, like get financing into domain names, get DeFi into domain names. So that's where we're at, and we're making progress. Telling you, Jake, a lot about traditional domain name industry. There's a lot of weird edge cases out there.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Dude, trust me. I mean, I've been on a couple ICANN working groups. Obviously, I did compliance on the registrar side, worked at network solutions and web.com for years, and, saw what a lot of that looks like, which is also why, again, going back to our original show that we did with Brad, I thought was really some of the most exciting stuff that we were talking about because, I think, to me, when you get into the Web3, there's a lot of speculative stuff where, there's a lot of degen type activity that you can get into and figure out but everything really has to come back to where the utility is. That's why domains, as we say, in some ways, the original NFTs and why they've always, been what we come back to is because of just the value of a premium domain name. And, you guys, again, being able to sort of bridge the gap between the traditional Web 2, the Web 3, and come up with ways to improve the existing system and do those things better is just pretty awesome. But I don't want to make this like I'm just sitting here and being a big old cheerleader. I think more importantly, looking at what you guys have been able to accomplish and also watching how the, sort of your plans have evolved and you guys have, again, kind of figured out the best way to, or at least at this point, what's the best way to try to bridge some of that gap. So talk to me, if I've got a name at Ustopabble at your registrar and you keep saying how the name is on chain, what does that mean as far as what if I want to transfer to another registrar? Like, how does some of that I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but, again, you've said it a couple of times, and I think it, just to clarify what that actually means. So if it's a non-Web3 domain, simple.com, it's at your registrar, what aspects of that are on chain?
Well, so the functionality that you get, you just transfer domain in and then we put on chain for you. It allows you to add crypto records to your domain name. So you can add, records for sending and receiving cryptocurrency. You can add records around
records being a wallet address.
Yeah, exactly. A wallet address, sorry, for receiving Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever. And so that's just making your domain more useful for those pieces. Mm-hmm. The other thing that's nice is when the domain is on chain, everyone in Web3 can see it. So it shows up on the OpenSea marketplaces. It shows up on Rarible marketplaces. So if you're trying to sell a domain name, especially if you want to sell a domain name to a crypto audience, well, you want it to show up in Web3. And so like when they're shopping there for their Bored Ape, maybe they pop over and shop for some domains on chain, right? And that's Web3 is great because once it's on chain, anyone can read it and see it and produce that. And so that increases the visibility for the domain name that you're trying to get out there. For transfers, the system is built to be inter-registrar. So what does that mean? You can move between registrars. We are talking to some other registrars in the space. They are very interested in working with us as soon as we're ready, right? And we're testing the technology on ourselves first. Unstoppable Domains is dog fooding the product, right? And we're talking to others in the industry. I won't name names, but we're talking to some places that have, 1 million+ domains under management. And they're saying, how can we use your system to put domains on chain? Because then transfers will be a lot faster. And like I was saying, transfers should be 20 seconds, not just between people on Unstoppable domain names, but transfers should also be 20 seconds between different registrars. Mm-hmm. And because it's on chain, we'll have an audit log of everywhere it's been. So if there's any kind of problem off chain, it's like, oh, then this person messed up and blah, 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 blah. You can actually see the different places that it went. So you're like, oh, actually, it messed up here. That registrar made a mistake. Here's who we can hold accountable. Some of the biggest some of the biggest mess you have right now is like who's what, and there's no kind of information around all these kind of transfers and where the process may have made some mistakes. And those are the types of things that we were talking about earlier, where
not just transfers, but approvals also. Like right now, for example, Afternic, which was highlighted by a domain investor this week or last week. I've talked about this many times. Shame on you, GoDaddy, that you haven't resolved this. Like, let's say Matt goes, let's just say I've got, I don't know, let's take a domain that we own. I don't know, Pegasus.com. Great. So Matt goes and he lists Pegasus.com in his Afternic account, even though it's in my GoDaddy account. He puts a buy it now price of $10,000 on it. You know, let's say that's 1% of what this domain's worth. Then, you know, he calls his buddy Brad and says, hey, Brad, go buy, you know, it doesn't even have to be this coordinated. It can also just be a dumb mistake. But nonetheless, the effect is the same. Brad goes, buys a domain, 10 grand. He just bought a $10 million domain name for 10 grand. And now they pulled the domain name out of my account. Matt gets paid because the sale listing was in his Afternic account, and Brad gets a domain, and I get, you know, a stick in the eye. So it's really a big problem that seems absurd that the largest company in domains would allow such a thing to happen. But this has been going on for years unabated. And they take no responsibility, and they basically just say, "Oh, well, it's your fault to make sure, you know, all your domains are listed in Afternic. Make sure all your names are in the right account. Make sure blah blah blah." Which they don't even make easy, because if you go in and try to list them in your account, it just says, "Oh, this domain's already in somebody else's account. You're shit out of luck." And then it's like, here, you can spend 29,000 hours trying to get this verified so that we can add it to your account. And it's just, it's a disaster, right? And so it's an approvals error, which is one of the greatest things in Web3 or just in crypto in general, is like nobody can authorize that transaction unless it's my key. Like, just plain and simple. And then if somebody does, it's like, you can see which key, which wallet authorized that approval, right? And so it's from an auditing perspective, from an approvals perspective, from authority perspective, it is so much more clear, clean, and secure than the traditional way.
Well, it can be. It's not yet. So
Well,
there's
there's an up, you know, there's a learning curve.
Well, and an opportunity. Actually, that's what you're about to say, and I think that's right. I mean, I think that's the thing. It's the legacy. This goes back to what I was saying, and kind of when, you know, we pivoted the show here, is that, you know, the opportunity to improve the ecosystem is huge. You know, provided it can be done correctly, and then, but you got to get buy-in by a lot of different people. You know, kind of Matt, to your point, you guys are working with different registrars to be able to get that intra registrar, you know, sort of operability, you know, cooperation. You know, I think the folks at D3, this is, you know, shout out to our boy Shane and Fred and those guys as well. I know they're, you know, dealing with some of the same sort of challenges as far as just trying to get some legacy companies, legacy systems to buy in, and, you know, because the more cooperation that you have across important players in the space, you know, allows for the actual stuff to function properly, right? So if I transfer a name into your registrar and I want to and I do a bunch of stuff on chain, then I want to transfer it out, let's say back, you know, to GoDaddy or whatever, can I do that? Then that's more of a legacy process, right? That'll take however long it takes, right?
Yeah. And without getting too deep on the technical details, what we actually, in our system, we can remove records. So if you're moving to a registrar that's on our system, it'll just stay on chain and move, boom, right? And it should be super quick. If you're moving to a registrar outside of that system, we will delete the on-chain record as part of the transfer process. So you say, like, I want to transfer out, you confirm it, we go on chain, boom, that record's getting removed because the person's moving to a registrar that doesn't support on-chain records, and then it pops over to the other record, you know, and then you're on GoDaddy. And then if you transfer it back in from GoDaddy, when it arrives to us, that's when we put it on chain again. So we're doing an extra transaction just when people, you know, leave or go to those. That way we can backwards support, right? It's backwards compatible, right? So like,
we're not exactly back to the past, not even back to the future. It's, you know,
So and it's going to be we got to make it easier for registrars to get onto the new system, and that's what we're working on. And I think that it's just going to be a good service for the whole industry, honestly.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, man. That's where I think the special sauce is. Because I always felt like there was that point where it was like a little handshake versus Unstoppable. Some of that little names con drama and things as well, and but I always felt like to me, what made you guys better and stand out was the fact that you have to play nice and figure out how to work within the legacy systems in order to really be a domain business, because the handshake stuff to me was always so messy that it was like people were registering those as if they were registering single use domain names and expecting that all sorts of people. And then it's like, and then they resolve on no browsers. And they're like, no, it's cool. It's cool. Don't worry. People are going to go like, everybody's going to go to Brave, or wherever, or we got some other off brand.
It's so funny though. I still get these like lowball. I don't even know if lowball is an appropriate word because I don't know if there's any value to begin with, but I get these like lowball offers on these like handshake names that I've got, and I'm still like, I don't know, like I'm like, should I just accept that and just like let it go? Like I don't really think these things have any value, so I don't know. I'm like torn. I think one
even
that
ENS
people actually registered domains on.
Even ENS, because what I felt was when they did the deal with GoDaddy to effectively provide the ENS support to traditional domain names on GoDaddy, and I thought and they were and everybody on with .eth domains was getting excited. And I was like, how is this better for you guys, right? Because at the end of the day, what's happening now is they're making .coms have the same crypto utility as a .eth domain with all of the benefits of a .com. Where is the value now on the .eth domains that don't have the legacy utility, and value? And so oh, well, no, this is our way of getting the foot in the door. And to look, credit to the ENS folks for providing that functionality for .com domains, and working with the registrars to do that. That's great. And I get it. They want to establish some inroads. So then maybe it'll go back and forth. And then, but it's like, now you're saying, hey, over here, you get both A and B. Over here, it's still just B. Why would I ever there's very little value here. In fact, now you could argue there's even less value here because you've now further bolstered the .com legacy domains with the functionality that the crypto domains have. You know what I mean? So, which is why I think at times, and some of what you guys are doing and establishing some of what you're doing, which if this is some of the direction that it's going, which I think is interesting, it's if it's a gold rush, selling the picks and the shovels. You know what I mean? Selling the access to the streams to go pan for gold. Or Gould, if you will, I think it's super, super interesting, man.
Yeah, I agree with that analysis. And I do think there's going to be a market for Web3 domains separate from ICANN domains, because there needs to be a market for just cheaper domain names that you can own as an individual for your crypto address. And that's one of the reasons why our Web3 domains are not going to have renewal fees, right? And I just feel like
that's awesome.
It's a consumer's going to buy a Web3 domain name for their wallet address. It's not the same as buying a domain name for, their business, right? And so I think the pricing is just off on that. And then, I was hypercritical. Yeah, I was hypercritical of a lot of these other naming services out there because I honestly did not believe they knew how to build what they said that they were setting out to build. And I also did not believe that the way that they were building it made any sense. And I'm public about this on Handshake, for instance. I've criticized the architecture and trying to rebuild the root DNS up from ground zero is crazy when there are billions of users for regular DNS already. And there's some other problems with the design. So yeah, it's hard, man. It's hard to sell domains. It's hard to build these systems. And I'm happy because I feel like we have a great team. We've been doing this for a long time, and I feel very confident about our ability to deliver on the vision that we're headed towards. And I think we'll be able to create value there for ourselves, for the domain industry, and for a lot of people. So, but I mean, there are 100 plus Web3 naming systems, guys, and most of them are down 99.
What? Really?
Yeah,
There's
most of them
that
are down. Yeah, every blockchain tries to launch its own naming service. right?
Yeah.
And I would say like the people who gold rushed in
Easy
20,
money.
the people who gold rushed in 2021 for it, I mean, they're down 99%. I mean, Handshake is down 99%. I think I posted their graph on Twitter once and I got a lot of hate. And I'm like, because I posted it at 50 cents, you know, and I said, this thing's going to 0 and now it's at 1 cent. Right. And like, no one's hating on me now. I was just trying to help people. Like I was saying, this thing's
like,
going.
that was the equivalent of like, hey, you want to see a dead body?
Yeah. And now they're down 98%. So like if they listen to me, hopefully I saved you 98, 98% is almost to 0. So getting close. But we'll see how these things turn out.
Well, and a lot of it's adoption. You gotta, you either have to, it's like the football analogy. It's like, you're either going to be where the ball is or where you got to be where the ball is going to be. And, the great quarterbacks in the NFL, they throw the ball to where the receivers are going to be, not necessarily where the receivers are sitting. And that's, obviously that, it's a metaphor that can apply to business as well, but especially here in this space where, it's a lot happening. There's a lot of moving parts. Yeah, but I do really like the piece that you mentioned about how, the pricing on Web3 domains, because you're right, and this was something that was frustrating for me. I had a .eth domain and I didn't pay to renew it, and this is where me as a, maybe I'm just an old guy. Okay.
Back when I registered, like literally day one when ENS launched, 2015 or whatever, I had a couple thousand of them. And there was no renewal fee. You literally owned it indefinitely. And then suddenly there was a renewal fee. And then I lost all of them because I wasn't, anyway. So it never made sense to me for a Web3 domain. Like it kind of defeated the entire purpose if you suddenly introduce, renewal fees. But it's like the classical problem, which is why everything except Bitcoin is basically a shitcoin in my idea, because there's always a money grab. Like it's we have this altruistic idea and look at how cool this is for humanity. And then it's like, wow, we built this amazing architecture. And it's like, oh shit, how do I get my bag? And then it's like, oh, I can't do it with this architecture. So let's go back and revert back to, the snake oil architecture. And then we're going to get our piece. And that's basically what happened across the board. And so in my view, basically, if you have a Web3 domain and it has a renewal fee, what do you have? Like, you have like a handicapped domain name. That's what you have.
I still got to pay for it.
Yeah, because when the bubble popped in 2021, 2022, a lot of those companies, because they were just there trying to grab at things, they did not pivot, right? And I think they're basically done, right? And then, and then on the other side of that, you've seen a little renaissance in the domain name industry. And like, I don't mind shouting out the competitors. Like, D3 is coming in, trying to innovate. 3DNS is trying to come and innovate. I think Domain5 is maybe another company.
I wanted to actually ask you this because I don't fully understand, but like, I've invested into a bunch of these. I invested into D3. I invested into Cryptograph, which launched their auction platform that involves GBM auctions. So everybody's got some kind of, all of these companies have some kind of mechanism for taking a domain name and bringing it on chain. And then I saw last week that 3DNS got is that what it's called, right? 3DNS? Yeah, 3DNS. They got a patent approved. They actually got a patent approval for their mechanism for bringing domains on chain. Now, I know you guys have patents pending, or I don't know if they're approved or not. I know that GBM Auctions has a patent pending on this. What I don't know if you saw that or if you are aware of their patent. Like, what are they doing that would be different that would allow them to even get a patent?
Yeah. So just real quick on patents. My take is patents are defensive in nature, typically while they're filed. And there's at least 5 different ways to do everything from a software, development perspective. We have 2 fully granted patents, right? And we've had those for a while. We have 20 plus pending, right? So, and these are all based around our technology. So these are just things that you do to, it's just typical business. So I don't think there's anything that particularly interesting about any of that, to be perfectly honest. And I mean, yeah. So, what's the curiosity around that? I'll just tell you, there's multiple ways to get things done. We have our systems, other people have their systems, and we are still very early in the process of figuring out the right way to do things. I have my strong opinion that the way that we're building things is the better way, right? And I have looked at how other people are building things, and I think that there are significant technology design flaws in how they're approaching the market, just like I saw with Handshake 4 or 5 years ago. And we're going to have an advantage based on how we're trying to build our software systems. But we'll compete in the market, and we'll see what gets adopted over the next couple of years. And I think it'll just work its way out. So, yeah, any other specifics about that you're curious about? Or
no, I mean, it just seemed to me like fairly arbitrary. Like I only very quickly skimmed through the patent, and I was just reading it. I was like, I don't know, this seems like pretty much how everybody more or less does it. Like
VeriSign has a patent on from like 4 or 5 years.
I guess that's actually the bigger question for me, was not specifically about D3 DNS, but just like, how can so many different companies be getting patents on this? To me, and maybe, and I'm not the technical guy, but like I do have a decent understanding of this very narrow field. And it just doesn't seem to me that there's that many ways to do this logically.
There are.
So it's just okay.
Yeah. So like, just, I'll just tell you that there are. And the thing is with patents, if you file them broadly, then they're more subject to challenge. And then if you file them narrowly,
prior art, baby.
Yeah. If you file them narrowly, then you're more likely to protect what you're doing, right? And so most companies are filing them, somewhere on that spectrum or whatever. And I think our patent portfolio is the best in the business. And we actually just won in court because someone sued us over one of our patents in the past month, and we're not published. It's not on the news or anything like that. I guarantee you, it was on Domain Name Wire when we got sued, right? He made sure to publish that, right? But he didn't publish when we won, right? So I will.
Shots fired.
Yeah, so
Shots fired.
I will point that out. Yeah, and we think that the drama around it is unnecessary, and like you have to file.
I will in your support, and to Andrew's detriment, Andrew Alamon, Domain Name Wire, editor and publisher. I think it is extremely narrow-minded and extremely unprudent the way that he has addressed the entire Web3 space since the beginning. He's had a very biased opinion about it. He's never provided any positive coverage, or I think really taken the time to really delve into where this extrapolates to. Meaning, yes, is it a Fugazi today? For the most part, yeah, totally agree. But that doesn't mean there's no legs. That doesn't mean there's no future. That doesn't mean it's not a better architecture. And I think that he treats it unfairly.
Well, I have some good news. Andrew just got in touch with me in the past couple weeks, and we are going to do a sit down and
nice.
So I'm hoping we can do a deep 1+ hour together podcast. Probably, and scheduling probably be January, right? On that, and because I wanted us to have more of our product out there so we can really talk about it with him and go into detail. So I think I'm going to try to turn him around, right, Andrew? Like I'm going to try to turn him around.
I love it.
And when we get connected next time. So yeah, but I mean, mini renaissance in the industry. And I also want to shout out like Atom.com, I think is doing amazing things. You have the new, is it DNX.com that came out? I can't remember who did that. Mm-hmm. There's a mini renaissance happening right now in the domain industry for startups. And they're getting funding and people are checking it out ahead of the next ICANN registry. And also people are experimenting with Web3 stuff. But, I like a lot of these companies. I mean, shout out to Atom. They've done a great job for really bringing visibility to
who is Atom.com? I don't even know. Oh, Atom. I'm sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Never mind. You know what? Honestly, shout out Darpon. All good. But yo, your name, dog. I literally confuse it with like Adam Strong, like Adam ADAM. And I'm like, Adam, who the fuck is Atom.com? Yeah.
The Adam project. Real quick. So just want to make a point, but I will say in Alamon's defense, not that he needs me to defend him. He's a smart, thoughtful guy. I think that he's
Oh, I
very.
got nothing but
No,
respect for
know,
Adam.
and he's one of our boys. He's on the
for
show.
Andrew.
He's a guest on the show. It's all good.
100%. 100%. I think he's an
that'll be
amazing journalist, and he does an amazing job for our industry. But on this particular subject, and I've said it before, I do think that he has an unfair bias that he's not willing to, or up to this point, hasn't been willing to, let's say, overcome.
He's just a traditional, logical, smart dude. I think it'll be interesting to see that conversation happen, and I think it'll be a really cool opportunity to just see a really, a good discussion with very smart people talking about some things that are very interesting. So all good. Again, I'm just saying that as a way to just kind of keep it moving. And but I'm with you. I mean, he's definitely much more of a traditionalist when it comes to the domain space. I don't think he has been first, even this, like, for example, when we talk about .ai, like he's not a big fan, largely because of the risk around the fact that it's a country code, and and that there's just inherent risk when you're dealing with the government of Antigua to be responsible for your ability to continue to use your domain name the way you want to. So so I think it's all good, obviously. It's part of what makes the space great. But yeah, man, I think that the kind of just sort of to close the loop on what we were talking about, the patent piece and everything else, the good tech is going to be but the better the tech, the better your chances of winning as this continues to move. The other thing I think is what's great about you guys, and probably the third time I mentioned it, and the way you articulated it better than I did earlier, which is you guys are pivoting, and your willingness and ability to pivot, I think is really strong, and and we're seeing it in how you guys are evolving, and I think that's super, super cool, because there's a lot of change, and the only constant here is going to be change, and it's just cool watching you guys be able to bridge that gap between legacy Web 2, Web 3. How do you make that work, and how do you make it work so that it's ROI, right? Value to customers, ROI to investors, all that kind of stuff. I think it's pretty cool. So and the good tech, man, good tech will win. So let's talk AI for a couple of minutes, and then we'll probably wrap up. But so how do you guys, first of all, how are you utilizing AI? We touched on this very briefly in the beginning. And how do you see that, changing, the landscape, SEO, search in general, like that kind of stuff. So first of all, what are y'all doing, and where do you see it going?
Well, we did have a ChatGPT domain search helper tool for a while. We actually took it down because the models have changed so quickly. But I think if you're domaining and you're not using ChatGPT to help come up with ideas for what it is that you're looking through, you're at a disadvantage. So just raw picking a name, I think, is different. The other thing is, I think we're going to see a lot of tools to help domainers using AI, right? And I think it's going to impact outbounding. I think it's going to impact SEO, and we're thinking about making investments in those areas, and that's going to be more just in the weeds, helping you get things done faster. But I think the real question is, if we have AI that makes creating websites super easy, how many more small businesses are we going to see? And I think that could be impactful on a medium time horizon, because anyone can launch a simple website.
Faster. It's going to be faster. It's happening now. So I'm going to give a little anecdotal story. So we are in the middle of closing a deal right now on a big oneword.com domain name. We're going to take equity in the company. And these are serious players backed by, basically some of the biggest private equity group in the world. And these guys are just straight A players. And they've proposed what they think will be the first single member billion-dollar company. And they're going to try and build it on one of our domains. And, in walking through the thesis with them, the reason it resonated with me immediately is that this is sort of, since ChatGPT launched, I've had it in the back of my head. I had again, like I talked about at the top of the show, this panic moment of ENS launching and thinking, wow, this is disruptive to domains. And with ChatGPT, I thought the same thing. Like, okay, so I mean, already I barely use Google anymore. I pretty much use ChatGPT or Perplexity for all of my search, all of my, let's say, question answer type of stuff. And so I thought, wow, what does that mean for domain names? And is that going to is that going to contract the number of websites? Is that going to change the way that humans actually are interacting with the web? And I saw a lot of threat on the horizon. And so it gave me some anxiety and made me go deep down the rabbit hole, thinking through what does this mean long-term for domain names? And the conclusion that I've arrived at is that this is probably the most bullish thing to ever happen to domain names. Because I think basically the value of everything else basically goes to zero. And the only way to create a moat, maybe that's not today, but 2-3 years from now, the only way to create a moat around whatever it is you want to build, for the most part, there will be exceptions, of course, will be your domain name. And so anybody, not anybody, but proverbial anybody with a brain and the right resources will be able to go and launch a significant business in virtually any field and compete with companies that may be established players today that have 100 employees or 500 employees or 5,000 employees. And they'll be able to do it with probably 1 to 10% of the manpower and the resources. And you're going to be able to very quickly deploy a website. You're going to very quickly be able to deploy, open source software, payments, agents communicating with each other, making payments between each other, creating subscriptions and transactional fees, and et cetera. All of this will be able to be done in an automated fashion, whereas today it requires like literally whole departments and multiple people and employees, huge cost structures. The CapEx of launching a $1 billion company is going to go from, let's say it would take $50 to $100 million today to build a 5 to 10 year $1 billion company. And your risk rate on that would be enormous. It's probably a 90% failure rate. You're going to flip that on its head, and it's going to take $1 to $5 million to launch a $100 million to $1 billion company. And you're going to be able to do it with 1 to 5 employees, and or let's say less than 10. And you're going to be able to deploy very quickly. So you're going to have a lot of iteration, a lot of rapid iteration, a lot of, you're going to have this explosion, explosion of new businesses. And the way that each of them will be able to differentiate is with their domain name. And so when I had this conversation, when we were doing this deal, these are really smart people that think through this stuff. They're very technical from an engineering and a finance perspective. And I became very convinced that the thesis is right, and that's where we're heading. And I think that AI is going to blow up the domain name space, especially the premium domain space.
My body is ready. I'm ready. I'm ready for that outcome.
Well, I saw you stand up. You got the stand-up desk in the meantime, while he was getting you hyped up.
Yeah, he was.
We saw, because we got to see a different shelf too, you know what I'm saying? So as it as it was going, I was like, oh, it's going to be on the 3rd level, But yeah, so what about you guys then, Matt, for your business? And so site development, I mean, are you guys tooling around that? Do you have any of that right now? Like, what do we expect to see there?
We're still exploring, because I told my team the tech is getting so much better every 6 months that making a significant investment in any type of tooling right now seems kind of ridiculous, especially around site building. 18 months from now, I think site building is going to be solved. We'll plug and play tools just like any other registrar will do for those things. We're going to focus on building some tools, specifically more focused on domaining into the next year. So that'll be our focus. And then we'll eventually get, the site builders, all that other stuff in. And I'm excited about Andrew's thesis. I can't say it. I mean, that's can't be more bullish than that, right? So it's a good place to be right now in the digital real estate space because they're not making more of it. I guess they are, but not as much as they are making more software.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, I think that absolutely makes sense. And that's what's going to be super, super interesting. You know, and we do have the DNX platform that we're partnering with Josh on. At some point, we're going to want to integrate some registrar features and functions. So there's probably a conversation for us to have about that. And so we'll talk some.
Let's get you on chain, right? We'll do that sometime next year.
Yeah, we'll definitely. We'll get it on the roadmap. That actually would align pretty well with us timing wise too. But anyway, so more to follow there offline. But all right, cool. And so do you think trend wise from an AI perspective that you see it the same way that the sort of AI causing an increase in the value of premium domains and domains in general?
I'm not as confident. So I do agree that it's going to make word combinations that are like calls to action. So like more like generic word domains more valuable because it's going to be so much easier to build up websites on those types of things. And people are going to start thinking about like having a tool for a specific thing, like PDF to like pdfconverter.com is kind of an example of a domain, like that type of domain name, because it's going to be so much easier to create those software services. I think that some of that long tail might change, but I don't have enough of an opinion. Andrew sees more sales data than I do. Premium domains going up a lot also makes sense though. So I can see how that would happen.
Yeah, to me, I think it's also a matter of cutting through the noise. I think that, when even ChatGPT, when I ran your bio, for example, pulled from several sources, right? And, I think that obviously we're inundated with information, we're in this social media world that'll now be, further put on sort of like, on a sort of its own tilt based on AI and everything else. We've got a lot of noise, a lot of information, everything's at our fingertips. How do you get to important, call it whether it's a single source of truth or critical or an important or a leading source of truth or however you want to define it or call it, ultimately people will still want to get to where they need to get to in order to get what they want to get. Right. And there has to be trust. There has to be, and I think so much of that and even from getting front of mind for consumers with branding, right. It's all, shorter the better. And again, premium domains, premium.coms. I mean, to me, it's like you kind of have to pick something. Something has to win because everything can't win. And it just makes sense to me that the leaders in the clubhouse will lead the clubhouse.
One other area that I think is going to change a lot is going to be SEO. So I mentioned that briefly. Just because if you're doing searches with chatbot agents, then that's going to change the type of SEO content that's going to need to be generated. So I think that industry is also seeing a lot of innovation right now. So that's one place that I have my eye on that's going to change. And if people are interacting with AI bots for getting their information, like when you want to find out about me, you have to think about how to advertising and how does getting that consumer eyeball play into those services. Like ChatGPT is launching a Chrome extension to do search, right? So if people are no longer going to Google, then that changes AdWords, that changes SEO. So we are seeing that happen. So I would say like that's 100% happening. SEO is not going away. There's going to be a new type of SEO aimed towards chatbot. And I don't know what it's going to look like, but that's where we're looking. One of the places we're looking to invest. I was talking about like domainer tools, right? So we're looking over there to see if we can do anything to be kind of on the edge there, but no plans yet, again, because it's moving so fast.
Sure. You guys already have things like bulk management and some other stuff. I mean, again, I think the fact that you've been able to build your registrar sort of from the ground up in this new age allows you to kind of do what Frank Schilling even did with Uniregistry, was create a registrar that gave him the functionality that he wanted because Network Solutions was not technically great, right? So I feel like you guys have some of that already. It'd be interesting to see how, right? I mean, I guess bulk management is pretty basic, but I know that's something that you guys have, and a few of the other things too. So and the TLDs that you guys have added into your marketplace, you've got XYZ, you have COM, right? I mean, it's a lot of the standard, leading TLDs, as well as the, your own crypto names. Now, for your crypto names, do they have the ability to do sort of, their IK, like Web 2 websites?
So you can build a website on them. A couple browsers resolve them. If we convert them at ICANN, which is, that's a big if, but if we're able to convert the ones that qualify, then they will work inside all ICANN. Our hope is to execute that process and get that to work well for us. But right now, mainly wallet addresses is what people are using them for.
Sure.
And
by converting means like if you guys can secure maybe the TLD in the new round type of thing, and then
yeah, that's exactly our intention, right? But there's that's a big if. So we're not making any promises around that, but that is one of the reasons why.
Well, they'll be very contested, and obviously there'll be some other factors and variables involved and all that stuff too. So that makes sense. And all right, well, it'll be interesting to see what's up, and there's a lot to unpack from here. A lot of exciting stuff happening, and yeah, this was pretty awesome, dude. Appreciate the time and getting some insight. We get the opportunity to kind of get a little bit under the hood just in general, but obviously to be able to provide this to everybody in our audience is super, super cool. All right, well, look, we're pretty much out of time, so I know we talked about you guys have some kind of promos or anything. Typically what we do at the end of every show, we call it the grand closing. If it was a Domain Sherpa review, and that's basically what this is, where we allow everybody to kind of talk.
We gonna drop this on Thanksgiving?
Yeah, this will drop on Thanksgiving, and so just in time for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, all that kind of stuff. So I don't know if you guys have anything. I think you mentioned maybe having something for the audience.
We've got two. So the big one is Cyber Monday. We always do a big Cyber Monday. We have a BOGO, buy one get one Cyber Monday, and it's for .com domain names. It's for all the DNS domain names. So if you've got that list of a couple hundred domains where you're like, I don't know if I need to register this or not, right? .xyz we support. Come register it with us on Monday and get another one for free, right? So get your Christmas up and done. And we're doing it for everything. So definitely going to be losing money on Cyber Monday, but we want you to come and we need you to tell us about our product, right? Because we're new here, we're learning a lot. And so we need some help. And then we have another that's just for this show and for your listeners. For people who have 100+ domains, we're doing transfer in promotion right now. Email Brady at unstoppabledomains.com. And it's okay if you blow up his email inbox. Walk you through the transfer in promo. If you're a pro domain,
Brady, you're screwed.
Let's go, Brady.
If you're a pro domainer, 100+ domain names, we're offering. We're offering anywhere from 500 to $5,000 so far for these domainers to come onto our platform, and because we need your feedback, right? And we had some issues with some transfers in with some other registrars because there always is something, and we learned a lot about that. So if you're willing to work with us, a new registrar, help us learn, contact Brady at unstoppabledomains.com. If you've got 100+ domains, if you're willing to transfer some of those in to test us out, we're giving you free money to come and check us out. And that's for anyone who's listening to this podcast. Reach out to him, and he'll put you in touch. But Cyber Monday,
for anybody who thought that these Web3 domain guys didn't understand the domain market, he understands it better than anybody. Certainly better than GoDaddy. He's going to give you free money, and that's the only thing every domainer actually agrees on. We all want free money.
Yeah, exactly.
100%. All right. Well, good stuff, man. Well, we'll put that in the show notes as well. And I'll mention it also in the intro, that we've got some interesting stuff. So stick around to the end kind of thing. And yeah, well, that's good stuff. So hopefully the folks who want to take advantage of that, please do. So Cyber Monday and the transfer in promo. Big shout out to Unstoppable for doing that. Big shout out to Brady, aka the Brady Bunch, aka Tom Brady, aka I don't know. I didn't prepare any of those, so those are kind of just off the top, but he's going to be, hopefully he'll be busy because, that's to the benefit of those folks that take advantage of it that are in the audience. So to the audience, I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in today. As I always say on every show, without you, there is no us. So thank you for tuning in. And obviously, we're not hard to find. Matt's making themselves pretty available for anybody. They want to know, they want the feedback. They want the good, the bad, the ugly. We don't mind the feedback, but they want the feedback, and there is definitely a difference. Drew, thank you so much, man. As always, appreciate you and your time, dude. And Matt, you too, man. More to follow, dude. We're going to talk offline a little bit. We got some things to talk about. Love a lot of what you guys are doing. And again, we're kind of in sync on some things, but I think there's even more stuff that we can be doing together. So, but yeah, so looking forward to that as well. But hey, everybody, thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see everybody next time here on Domain Sherpa, where all roads lead to domains. Peace out, y'all. Oh, and happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving,
Happy
everybody.
Thanksgiving.
Be safe out there. Enjoy the time with you and yours. Check on people that you haven't talked to in a minute. And remember, not everybody, we're thankful for the things we're thankful for. We've got a lot to be thankful for, but sometimes people's perspectives or the things they're going through in life are not easy. So, definitely check in on friends and family. Give grace where you can. Be thankful for what you have. And, and be excellent to each other. And we'll see you all next time here on the show. All right, peace out, y'all.